Welcome back, everyone, to Inside the Diamonds podcast. This is episode 4. I'm your host, JC, and I'm joined tonight with CJ. How you doing, CJ?
After a long, crappy day, I'm excited to talk some baseball and watch some baseball. So I'm happy to
Yeah,
be here.
yeah. Hopefully, my internet will hold out. Like I said, I'm in a hotel in Buffalo, so hopefully it'll hold out, and that I don't get bombarded with a bunch of hockey kids. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I can't wait to get baseball back on the TV now that I'm here. Now that the boys out of the room. So why don't we start this episode by quickly going over our predictions, finishing up from the first 2 episodes that we did where we were discussing the divisions, the winners. Get into the playoffs. Let's talk that. Then let's talk the awards, and then we can hit on everything that happened this past first weekend. So, to kick it off, why don't you walk us down through what you have happening in the American League and then the National League, and then who you have. Um, we'll wait on the World Series until I do mine. How's
Okay,
that sound?
that sounds good to me. All right, so as far as the American League Championship Series, I, I again, this is before the season started.
Yeah.
I had the Orioles over the Mariners,
Okay.
and the Orioles look like that's the case. They look good after 4 games. We're not going to get ahead of ourselves, but the Mariners, wow, that was an interesting weekend as far as their pitching is concerned.
Yeah.
Um, and then going to go right into the National League. Braves over the Phillies. And people might say something about this with not having the Dodgers. But I got Braves over Phillies. I think the Phillies are good. I think,
Even after this weekend when they just trounced them.
well, that's why I say the Braves over the Phillies. I didn't say I had the Phillies winning. Who did the Phillies? I feel like the Phillies signed somebody.
No, not that I remember.
No,
Not
all
unless
right.
it's
Either
some
way,
minor
I'm
leaguer.
still comfortable. I'm still comfortable with Wheeler and Nola leading the charge, and then that lineup is just good. So
Yeah.
I have a strong feeling that the Phillies are actually knocking out the Dodgers in the round before this.
Did you see Schwarber this weekend hit that smoke shot off a Sale?
Was that yesterday in the first
It's,
inning? I watched
yeah.
that.
It's as soon as Sale threw it in the crack of the bat, he ducked, like flinched. Immediately. That's how quick Schwarber hit that ball. That boy can hit. All right. So I don't have.
I want to make my bold prediction here on why I
Go
said what
ahead.
I just said. So the
Yep.
Phillies eliminate the Dodgers in the NLC in the NLDS, and the reason why I have that is this is my bold prediction, and some people have heard me say this, whether I've seen you in person or whatever. I have a strong feeling as a Red Sox fan. Alex Cora is not under contract for next year.
Okay.
I think he's leaving. I think the Dodgers, with all that talent, are going to look at this and go, Dave Roberts isn't the guy. He's fired after they lose in technically the first round because they'll have the bye. And Alex Cora gets the bag and is the manager of the Dodgers next season, which could be what leads them to a World Series title.
Wow. Otani's taking that bet. So that's nice. Otani will take that bet all day long. He will put that money on Cora being the next manager there. Now, briefly, I would love to go back and see the numbers and the gambling on any site or anywhere out there out west when it came down to Yamamoto and where he was going to sign. I want to know a little bit more in regards to the interpreters where he had his money. Because that right there is something that is interesting. But either way, doesn't matter. That's a good bold prediction. I have Baltimore beating the Astros. I have the Astros and Mariners going 7 games, and the Astros beating them with Verlander on the hill against, probably George Kirby or Luis Castillo. I do have Baltimore just really. I think Baltimore is going to make a move at the deadline to grab another arm and just really, really crush that division. I don't have any doubt they don't win more than 100 games this year. In the NL, I have the Braves and Dodgers. I think the Dodgers will get there. I think that you're going to see the Phillies pitching staff, no, something's just off with Nola the past 2 years, and he's starting out the same way. I don't think they're going to be as dominant this year. I also think the Phillies are going to end up getting taken out by the Reds in the opening series. But that's just my bold prediction. So Dodgers, Braves, Astros, Baltimore, and I think that'll all depend for the Astros preseason before they got swept by the Yankees was in regards to Verlander and Hunter Brown, how those two came back. I think Hunter Brown's going to have a good year, but right now that's where I had it before the season actually kicked off. So who's winning the World Series?
I went back.
Who's going to the World Series for you?
So I think I already gave that away. I got Orioles and Braves. I went back and forth because both of these teams are very, very talented. You right away just kind of almost made me change my mind, but we're sticking with what we had before the season.
Yep.
I'm going with the Braves over the Orioles. And the reason why I almost changed my mind is I agree with you. The Orioles are going to get someone at the deadline. A number 2 or a number 3 starter. They will go get someone. Will that be able to beat the Braves? That's where I started to question it. I don't think so. But I think I also said in the National League, it was 2 weeks now, so I can't remember what I did yesterday sometimes.
Yeah.
I think I did say that this is the year that I think Chris Sale stays healthy and is a Cy Young candidate. All that said, as a number 3, 4 starter, especially in the playoffs, there's less stress on him. I mean, Strider and Fried and Morton, I think they're just miles ahead. I think the Orioles are good, but I think the Braves win, and I actually have it in 6.
Okay. So I have Baltimore beating the Astros in 6 games. The Dodgers and Braves go the full 7. Now, I had to do this for both divisions, and everything is as they stay healthy, right? If the Braves stay healthy and the Dodgers stay healthy or come back healthy, meaning Walker Buehler and their arms, Clayton Kershaw comes back, that's just as good as adding a veteran arm at the trade deadline, getting him back mid-season. I think the Dodgers are going to actually surprise the Braves in 7. But there'll be something controversial, whether that's Ohtani pitching as a closer in the playoffs. There's going to be something that'll be spiced up, that'll come into play, that'll heat up that series if everyone's healthy. So I have the Dodgers against Baltimore, and I have the Dodgers.
That's a bold prediction. Ohtani pitching in a closing role, that's a bold prediction. I like it.
Somehow he's going to come back and do something. Because now all of a sudden, now you're in late October, right? So he's close to being back to ready. Perhaps. Will they waste it? Maybe. But I think that it'll be kept quiet as well. You know what I mean? I think that this is something no one expects. He comes out. They end up beating the Braves in 7, but they beat them in Atlanta in Game 7. Because the Braves will win more games, in my mind. But then I have the Dodgers beating the Orioles in 5 games in the World Series, just overpowering them with their pitching and their young bats. I like the Orioles, but I just think the Dodgers, if they can get past the Braves, the Orioles will steal one game away, maybe when Burns is pitching. But other than that, I think the Dodgers run away with it. And I hate saying that because I don't want them to.
Here's a question for you before we move on. Is Jackson Holliday on that roster?
Yes, he's on that roster.
So I think you saying that we're both in agreement that him in AAA is the same as Chris Bryant was for the Cubs a couple years back. It's just an extra year for him. Yep. Okay, that's where I'm at too.
I when I was thinking about it, my big thing with the Orioles are they're built long term, and they're going to be like that team that goes in and gets beat, but then they're going to go back. Now they've got that chip on their shoulder. They're going to have that added experience for these young kids. I think, like I said the last time, I think Corbin Burns doesn't leave Camden Yards again for a long time.
I hope so too.
So that was kind of again, trying to keep everything that we've done so far to remember it was before the season started, because then once the season started, there's a lot of different things came up. Pretty hard to look at the Yankees crushing the Astros, not having them making the playoffs for myself at all. But that's where I have them, and I think that's the Dodgers. Much as I hate it, I think that there's going to be some silly things that happen at the end of the year, especially in that NL championship when the Dodgers are playing the Braves. But that's what I have.
I
So
almost, and I've written this and I've talked about this. I almost went the Tigers in the ALCS just because I think they are this year's Diamondbacks. So I would be surprised if they somehow shock everybody and reach the World Series. Absolutely not. I think they have I said it last week in the American League preview. They have the pitching and the depth and the bullpen and the lineup that can do it. So I think they could really shock people. And don't be surprised if they're there. I almost did it. Almost. But I talked myself out of it. I just like the Mariners pitching just a little bit more because they, to me, are a top 5 rotation.
Yeah. The tricky thing for the Mariners, as we said last week, is if they get off to a slow start again, there's so many teams that are deep that if they're not going to be able to make up that difference to get in there. There's just so much talent now, and there'll be moves made, and I think they may panic. And they may panic and end up shifting off one of their arms if they had to. I hope not. But, yeah, there's a lot. It'll be interesting. We'll have to revisit this halfway through the season, right before the trade deadline, and just see how off we are and what the surprises are.
We should do at the trade deadline, like right before or even after it, because I forget what day it is. We should re-evaluate our predictions and see if we changed anything. It's like a free pass.
Yep.
You get a free one-time change on anything, and then you can go from there. I actually would say the All-Star break before the trade deadline. That way you can't let the trades change your decision.
Yep. Makes sense. Actually, you know what we could do now that we're talking midair, but during the home run derby, we broadcast on Monday nights.
Yeah.
We can do it while watching that and have that in the background or whatever. We can figure that all out. But so now that we have given you our World Series predictions, why don't we jump right into the awards we're going to do the American and NL Cy Young, AL NL MVP, Rookie of the Year, and then Coach of the Year. So why don't you go ahead and give me your AL Cy Young Award winner?
Make it quick. I'm going Tarik Skubal. I mean, and again, this was before the season. I said that he was – I think I said it actually last week that he is a dark horse for it. I might have said it 2 weeks ago as well. Even more so, I think, watching his start on Thursday solidified that and what he can do. I mean, he is pumping. And as long as he stays healthy, he can compete as one of the best pitchers in the American League.
Okay. I wrote an article in regards to bold statements for the Mariners, and I said they were going to have 2 of the 5 top vote getters for the Cy Young. I'm going George Kirby. And after what he did, his opening start with 9 strikeouts and just basically dominated, and he doesn't have, knock on wood, any health concerns. I think he's going to surprise some people, and hopefully if that Mariners team does well, better than the Tigers, for instance, that he can sneak out that Cy Young and take that award. Because, other than him, the only other name that I had even considered was Burns. But
that was the other one for me.
But George Kirby's the guy for me. Just he's so young, he's just talented, and out of that rotation in their bullpen, I think he's got a good opportunity this year to do that.
I think the only thing that hurts him is the rotation. And because of all the other arms and the talent they have, it's going to hurt his votes. And that's the reason why I didn't go that way. I'm right there with you because I think Gilbert is another option. I like Logan Gilbert a lot. So I'm right there with you.
All right. Who do you have for the NL Cy Young?
Spencer Strider. I love this Braves rotation from top to bottom. Again, this might go back to what I just said to you. What his rotation has might hurt his votes. But I actually want to pull it up. I believe his stats last year, he was a candidate to be a he was in the Cy Young conversation before he got injured. I'm pulling it up right now. But I love Spencer Strider and watching him pitch. He's another name I don't talk about much that we've done this. He is a lot of fun to watch. Oh no, he made 32 starts last year. So never mind. I'm thinking of Fried, but I still got Strider as my Cy Young. He's got to get that ERA down a little bit. You got to me, the 3.86 a little high. His strikeouts, he had 281 last year. I think he's one of the best pitchers in the National League, and to me, one of the most fun to watch. And I don't know who else really. I mean, I guess you could go Logan Webb's another option, but he's the runaway to me in the National League right now. Not even right now, before the season, and right now too.
Before the season, I had Strider. Wheeler, and then Gallen. And I landed on Zach Gallen just simply due to what we said earlier in regards to the supporting cast in the rotation. Zach Gallen is going to be head and shoulders above the rest of that rotation. Not saying that they're not good, but his stats and everything, he's going to lead that Diamondbacks team back to the playoffs, and he's going to win over 15 games. And he's my pick for the Cy Young this year.
I like that.
There was somebody else I wanted to throw in there after Saturday's performance, but I won't. This is all preseason.
Who? Now I'm curious.
Bobby Miller.
Oh.
Again, he's too young, but, recency bias, when someone's out there just dominates the game and just throwing BBs, if that kid can stay healthy, and that's part of the reason why I was okay with the Braves beating the Dodgers, is they just have arms, a ton of arms. So I hate doing this one. MVP, American League, who do you got?
Julio Rodriguez. And
okay,
I see it as Shohei ran away with the award last year, and it very well deserved. But yes. I think with Shohei being in the National League, now it opens up the conversation for other names. And Julio Rodriguez, to me, stays healthy, gets to the top of that list. He finished behind Seager, Simeon, and Ohtani last year. And we talked, I don't know if it was the first episode or second episode, where we had to talk about what team has the biggest fall, like the Cardinals. Yeah. And I said the Rangers. So take those two names out. Ohtani's gone. I think the award is Julio Rodriguez.
Okay. I had Marcus Simeon and Juan Soto along with Julio. I didn't pick Julio simply because I think he's going to get off to a slow start, and I think he's going to have an average year for Julio Rodriguez. Not an average year for anybody, but an average year for himself. Marcus Simeon simply because I think that team's going to fall off, and I think there's going to be other hype around that team that he'll get lost in the shuffle again. So my pick, as much as it kills me, is Juan Soto. I think he's going to single-handedly find a way for those Yankees to get into the playoffs, even though I don't have him picked to. But I think his offensive ability is going to lead that team into the playoffs and make some noise. Not get anywhere far and disrupt what we just talked about, but I think he'll lead that team. I mean, and he's starting off hot with 1 home run, 4 RBIs. He's hitting .529 with a 1.365 OPS. And he hasn't even played in Yankee Stadium yet.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was my pick beforehand. I didn't expect him to come out. I didn't expect that opening series to be the way it was. But I just think in that short porch where he doesn't always hit for power, but he's always he sprays the ball around when he's hitting his home runs. He's going opposite field. I think you'll see some of those. That short porch and right is going to generate at least 5 to 6 additional home runs for him. And I just think he's going to eat behind Judge, in front of, wherever they put him. If he's in front of Judge, where he ends up for the season, in between the rest of those bats, I think he's going to have a huge season.
Yeah, I can see it too.
All right. Who's your NL MVP?
Mookie Betts. And realistically, he would have been it last year. Not should have. He would have been it if Ronald Acuna didn't have that historic season that he had.
Yep.
And I mean, like you just rattled off Soto's numbers, Mookie. I mean, granted, the Dodgers have played more games than anybody else because of the series in South Korea. He's hitting 500. I mean, he's that move to shortstop may have been something. We talked about it, I think, a couple weeks ago where we were iffy on it. But the way he's playing with the move to shortstop, he's a whole different player. I mean, it's just he's got a 1.136 slugging. He's got a 1.757 OPS. He's 10 RBIs, 4 home runs. I mean, he's just stroking the ball right now. So I had him before the season, but watching what he's done in the first, I think what they played 6 games. Sorry, 6 games. It's just solidifying it for me. It's case closed. I think it's Mookie.
Mookie is the type of guy. I remember when he was with Boston, they moved him from second because Pedroia was there, and they moved him out to center. And he had that great year. And he's the type of guy that puts a chip on his shoulder. He's moving from second over to short, position he's never played in the pros, right? So everyone's watching that, and he's just continuing to rake. I agree. I think he's going to have a good year. My pick, on the other hand, was someone that I have been beating this drum all spring training. I think Seiya Suzuki for the Cubs. And yes, it's a homer pick, but I think that he's going to put it all together this year with Bellinger behind him, with Morel, all the talent that's there. I think he's going to have a surprise year and drive that team deep into the playoffs. And I think he's going to have he's my dark horse to win the MVP for the National League. And that's what I'm going to stick with.
It's an interesting pick. It's not where I thought you were going.
He last year had a great year. He's still getting kind of comfortable. He's had some nagging injuries each of the first 2 years. I think this year he's going to stay a little more healthy. I think Craig Counsell is going to have the ability to get him some time at DH to rest him some. He's a great fielder too, but I think what he can do is, like today, I watched on my drive. He just takes the ball. He takes what the pitcher gives him and drives the ball, drives the opposite field. He does a lot of the little things well. And I think his power numbers this year, I think he's got a chance to hit 30 doubles and 30 home runs and steal 18 bases and drive in 100 runs. Now, that's not probably going to beat some of the other power numbers, but I think what he does in the field as well is going to be enough to get him into the race.
Out of curiosity, because you named, for all the other awards, you named who you had as the other two. Who were your other two?
I had Tatis.
Okay.
As one, healthy.
He was on
the other one was Matt Olson.
Okay. So there's my other two as well. Okay.
Yeah.
So we did agree there.
But it's pretty tough. I mean, I had more people in the National League to pick from than the American League. Because you can pick Mookie, you can pick Freddie Freeman, you can pick Ohtani, you can pick Acuna, you can pick Matt Olson. I mean, Austin Riley was another one, but he's just not there for me yet. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised, but yeah, the National League has got so much.
What about Bellinger?
I don't think he's going to have a repeat year.
Okay, I agree.
In my opinion, I think he'll be similar, but down a little bit. In my opinion, but I mean,
average. He'll be average.
Yeah. I don't think he'll. I think he'll be right around last year, maybe a little lower in some of the average in some of the power numbers, but it won't be the dip that he had when the last few years he was with the Dodgers.
Mm-hmm.
All right, AL Rookie of the Year.
This one, I almost, and I'll give this a little tease. I almost went Colt Keith, but I was really thinking that he was going to make the roster, and thankfully he did, and he's looked good so far. I have Wyatt Langford, and I actually, as a Tigers fan, as well as a Red Sox fan, I can't tell you. I had a game during the draft, so I wasn't able to actually watch it. Or actually, no, I was driving home after a game, and I saw it come across my phone that the Tigers took Max Clark. at the third pick, and Wyatt Langford went 4. And I said, "Are you kidding me? I have
Yep.
followed Wyatt Langford since his what was he a June? I believe last year was his junior year, since he was a sophomore at Florida. He to me was the lock at 3. I was surprised. I mean, if Cruz and Skeens weren't in this draft, he's number 1. He
Yeah.
should have been a Tiger, and there's no question in my mind. But they went Max Clark. Wyatt Langford is a Ranger. Defending World Series champion, and he
Yep.
makes the team out of camp. And I think he's going to make that team a lot better. Again, we talked about it. Their pitching's a question. That's why I have them as the team to follow, and I have them where I do. But I think adding his bat to the lineup is fantastic. I think he is going to surprise some people. And I know people have said his counterpart, his teammate, I like Wyatt Langford more than I like Evan Carter. And
Yeah.
my rankings may not reflect that, but I think Langford will end up being a better player.
So for me, heading into the year, I had Jackson Holiday. Before we started this, he was sent down. And knowing what they have there and not knowing how he was going to respond or when he would come up, I shifted. And I too have Wyatt Langford. And after watching him this weekend in those 3 games against the Cubs and the pain in the ass that he was for the Cubs pitching, that kid, like you said, he may not be ranked or may not have been drafted ahead of some of these others, but he's just going to be a better player all around because he's going to get he forces the Rangers to play him by how he plays. He doesn't need the development. He's coming there. He's already there doing it. He's good defensively, and I really like his bat. I really, really like his bat. And as much as I hate to agree with you on that's who I had as well. Him and Holiday. And if Holiday would have made the team, I probably would have went with Holiday right out of the bat, just because of the hype and there's, to be honest, there's not a whole lot of options that are already on pro clubs right now. There'll be someone maybe that comes up, May could surprise us all, but that's where I went.
Could Rafael? He's looked fantastic to start.
He could.
Before,
he very well could.
One thing I wanted to mention, did you see the video of Langford tonight?
No, not yet.
He was on first base, and he stole second, or maybe it was a ground ball. Oh, it was ground ball to shortstop, and he was advancing to second. He saw no one had third, so he went to third. And granted, he ended up being out on the play. But he realized smart base running on his part.
Mm-hmm.
The catcher was covering third. The pitcher was somewhere else. He went home. And the pitcher just beat him, which my guess is because he's got speed. He must have just been gassed. Yeah. But the pitcher just barely beat him, and he was out at the plate. But to me, that's heads-up base running. I mean, he took third base on a routine ground out and had the chance to score. Yeah. And just, to me, like I said, it was barely – I mean, he was out. It was clear as day he was out, but it was close. And you love seeing that. And that's just the kind of baseball player he is. So Rangers fans got lucky with him, and they're going to enjoy him for, I would say, a long time.
Yeah, definitely 100% effort. He's got all the skills, all the bat involved, but he's also just smart. He's not afraid. I think that's probably the one thing that sticks out with what you just said is a lot of these guys come up worried about making mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Taking that opportunity right there, it was a risk, but where there's no clear coverage, because there's no guarantee that pitcher is going to be awake and aware, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you're supposed to, you practice this, but chances are 9 times out of 10, you got to catch them sleeping.
Yeah, so steal a run. Could steal a run, help your team. I like it.
Yep.
I like the aggressiveness.
All right. Who do you have in the National League?
I actually went Jung-Hoo Lee.
Okay.
And this was before the season started. And I went back and forth. Listen, I wrote, and I said this one of the podcasts, probably the National League one, but I wrote, could Yoshinobu Yamamoto be a bust? I don't think he is, but based on what his last 2 spring starts and what his first start was, I couldn't find it to put him as my NL Rookie of the Year. And then as I went through it, I really, like you said with Jackson Holiday, I wanted to do Paul Skeens. But he's starting the year in AAA, and I don't know if that's another situation like we mentioned with Jackson Holiday, if if it's a year of contract thing, but he's in AAA, and I just couldn't find it to put him as my pick. If he comes up and we do the conversation of changing our picks, he might find his way as my pick. But right now, Jung-Hoo Lee is my pick, and he was a guy that I wrote back in November that I wanted the Tigers to sign.
Yep.
So I'm glad he's a Giant, so I don't have to deal with him in the American League as a Red Sox and Tigers fan. But I think he is going to be somebody that wasn't talked about as a free agent signing. He was a top 10 guy on a lot of lists, but once he signed, he wasn't talked about as a difference maker to the Giants lineup. And I think as he starts to get comfortable, you'll see it.
So, a couple of things to that. First, I'll start with Skeens. He only threw 3 innings for Indianapolis in his first AAA start. Do you think that they're going to just baby him all year long?
No.
And just limit his innings?
No. One thing I've noticed over the last couple of years covering minor league baseball is that's typical for minor league teams, especially I followed the Tigers a lot last year with their minor leagues because I'm a big Ty Madden fan. And a lot of his starts, even at Double-A, he would go 3 to 4 innings. So I think that's a minor league issue or a minor league thing where they keep the innings down, where they keep the pitch count down, and especially with it being his first start.
Right?
Yeah. So I think he's going to be fine, and I think there won't be any restraints on him whatsoever.
Mind you, it was a perfect 3 innings. Didn't allow a hit, didn't give up a walk, and struck out, I think, 5. So I was just curious in regards to how is Pittsburgh going to play this with him, and what are they going to do? So for me, Lee was another one I thought about, but I don't believe Yamamoto's. I think he's going to be the 3rd best free agent signing out of Japan this year. I think Lee's going to be the 2nd one, but I think the best pitcher this year from Japan is going to be Shota. There's something all spring when he came over. They're trying to get him to throw up in the zone and I was listening to it today when I was driving when he was pitching against the Rockies. They said that launch angle is not a huge thing over in Japan, right? So it's more level swing, more line drive. They're not worried about the launch. So when he came over, he was concerned with getting up in the zone because he didn't realize that the launch angle up here at the major leagues, you're going to get a lot more swing and misses because they're going to be swinging under it. And he's lived there. He had 9 strikeouts today. He had 25 and I think 12.1 innings or 12.2 innings in the spring. I think he's going to come out, and I think he's going to be the best pitcher, even with Justin Steele there. I think he's going to be the best pitcher for the Cubs this year as long as the wind is in his favor because he is a fly ball pitcher. But I think he's going to be the best pitcher this season signed from Japan. And as much as I like Lee, I think Lee is going to go kind of unnoticed because of where he plays in San Francisco. And there's just something about that not being a huge baseball market, or they just keep it quiet. I think he's a great player and probably deserves it. But I think Shota coming out of Chicago and being their best pitcher and then making the playoffs, I think he wins National League Rookie of the Year.
If they win the division, it's hard for me to disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
He looked good today. He looked really good today.
Yeah.
2 hits, no runs, 9 Ks. Did he have a walk? I don't think he had a walk.
No. He doesn't walk many batters. He only walked 2 this spring.
Yeah, no runs. I mean, he looked good. 0.33 whip. I like it. That's a good thing.
It's the Rockies. It's the Rockies. But that's who I had from the spring, just with what they're trying to do there. And he's a control guy, right? He throws for control. Didn't give up many walks in Japan either. I think he struck out 177 and walked 22. Don't quote me on that, but I think that's what he did in Japan last year. So in terms of control, I think that he's underlooked. So now let's move to Coach of the Year. Who do you have in the AL?
Biased. AJ Hinch.
Okay.
And the reason I have that is I have the Tigers win the American League Central. And we talked about, I had the Orioles. I like Brandon Hyde. but I think the Orioles are expected. I had the American League West. I had the Mariners. That's a little kind of they're right there with the Astros. So I mean, either way, one of those two managers kind of expected. A lot of people don't have the Tigers winning the division. They have them finishing second or third. And I think if they win the division, they surprise people. AJ Hinch wins the Manager of the Year award, and that's why he's my pick. Is the Tigers win the division?
Okay. Who was? So you didn't want to go with Hyde.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So I'm going to go with in the American League. Hyde is who is the easy one, right? So I had told you before that I like the Indians a lot more than anyone else. But above that, I like Stephen Vogt.
The Guardians. Don't let us
Stephen
get
Vogt
sued.
as a catcher.
Don't let us get sued. The
Nope,
Guardians.
Yeah. Guardians. Sorry, the Indianapolis Indians, which I was surprised they got away with it. But the Cleveland Guardians. Stephen Vogt is a guy that I loved watching play when he was with the A's. And him coming over, he's a smart baseball guy, an old catcher. I just think that the Guardians are going to do much better than expected, and I think he's going to be the one to win for the American League. It's a dark horse because I think Baltimore and Hyde is going to be an easy pick, but
Probably.
I think if the Indians can sneak into the wild card as I have them, Voigt is going to be right up there in the running too, and that's who I'd like to see win it.
Yeah, I have a wild card as well, besides AJ Hinch. I think John Schneider could be at the end to be talked about. If the Blue Jays, the Blue Jays are projected a lot of places I've seen to finish fourth, with the Yankees and the Rays finishing second and third. If the Blue Jays surprise people and they make the playoffs and that lineup performs the way it can and the pitching does what it does, John Schneider's a name to watch. And he used to, I believe, as a person who lived in New Hampshire, he coached the Fisher Cats. So he's somebody to watch as another name for the Manager of the Year award.
Okay. Who do you have winning the Coach of the Year for the National League?
Bob Melvin. I said when we did the National League that I liked the Giants this year, and that was before Blake Snell that I liked the Giants. I liked the idea of adding Chapman. I liked the idea that they added Lee, and I love Soler. I love the Soler signing. That I think the Giants are going to be a playoff team when they're not. People don't have them. I've seen a lot of people having the Padres over the Giants. I think the Giants will surprise people, and I think that leads to Bob Melvin being the National League Manager of the Year.
Okay. David Bell from the Cincinnati Reds is my pick. I think I liked him beforehand. I like him even more now, given the adversity he's going to have to face with Marte gone for 80 games, McLean out, TJ Friedel out, and just how he's going to have to patch that together in the early going. And I think the Reds are a team that are going to surprise some people the way they finish out with some of those things they have adversity. And I like David Bell. I mean, obviously, I'd love to see Craig Counsell win it, but that would be too easy. And obviously, there's some other good managers out there. Melvin's a good one. But I think David Bell will sneak in and take that award this year in the National League.
Can we agree that Craig Counsell feels like the favorite right now?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the only way he doesn't win it is if the Cubs fall apart and just don't make it. But I think he's just, I'd really like to see him go back and be the Diamondbacks coach. It's just where when I think of Craig Counsell, it was weird seeing him with the Brewers, and it's good but weird to see him with the Cubs. But just for me and his playing time, I think he belongs out there with that crew with the Diamondbacks. Nothing against their manager, but just for me personally, when I see him, that's what I think about. I see him in a Diamondbacks uniform.
Now, again, this is our preseason picks.
Yes.
After 4 games, how crazy it's to start talking about maybe Derek Shelton.
We'll get to that.
Okay, we'll save it. I'm fine with that.
No, there's it's early in the year. Obviously, this is preseason. But yeah, there's I think that between rookie of the year and coach of the year, that's the one where we'll probably have the most shifting. I think Cy Young and MVP. I think you'll hear some of the same names, maybe another surprise name pop up, but nothing. I don't think there'll be any shock in those two conversations. Coach of the year is where, and rookie of the year, where I think there's some definite shakers and movers and different names that'll pop up.
Yeah, because you got the surprise teams.
Yep, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, there could be some guys that are driving that surprise that walk into the Cy Young or the MVP. But for the most part, I in my head, those are the two that I could see myself shifting from once we get into the All-Star break and see what's happening. So I think that, I mean, I don't think there was any big surprises there with our picks to start. I think it'll be more interesting to see who we advocate for come July and see how we switch. And I think that'll be a little bit more interesting. So right now, let's take a break and we'll get into this weekend. So if you're out there listening and subscribing to this podcast, watching us on YouTube, listening to us on Spotify or on Apple, and you're interested in writing for baseball, join us. Just follow the link insidethediamonds.com/join us/ let us know what team you want to follow. Let us know if you're interested in minor league teams, anything that interests you within baseball, reach out. We've got a great group of people here working, writing. It's all a hobby for us right now, trying to build the brand, build the following, and just really just have some fun with it and discuss baseball from different perspectives. We've got a lot of different things we're trying to build. Down on the Farm is a new one that we're doing with all the AAA, AA, single A, and high A teams, and following the top prospects that we have for each team and talking about who they're facing the following week, how they did the week before, just giving an insight look to your favorite team or team you follow or close to. If you live near a minor league park that you want to write about, just go back and join us. Send us a message. We can talk it through, see what fits for you. There's no real requirements. We're asking 3 articles a week, so pretty easy to do. But if you're interested in writing baseball, just follow us and let us know, and we'll find a spot for you within our group. All right. Big first week of baseball. You and I have discussed some things back and forth between our busy schedules, but I want to hear from you your biggest surprises from this weekend.
So the first one for me was the Baltimore Orioles. I mean, we've talked about I think both of our picks to win the American League East, but are they a bigger problem than anybody thought? I mean, in the first 2 games, granted, it was the Angels. They put up like 24 runs, I believe, in the first 2 games. And then, I mean, Sunday they kind of hit a wall. And tonight they got 4. Yeah, they had 24, 1, and then tonight they got 4. And Corbin Burns looks like he's a problem. But the big name to me that stood out on the weekend for the Orioles was Grayson Rodriguez, who 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 1 walk, and 9 strikeouts. That's a solid day. I mean, can he keep it up? That remains to be seen. But as a number 2, that's a pretty good stat line. So they could be a bigger problem, especially with a number 2 starter like that. Tyler Wells didn't look so good yesterday. Today was who pitched today? I'm pulling it up. Creamer. He didn't have a great day, especially against the Royals. The Royals are another surprise team that we can talk about. But the top half of their lineup today, Henderson 1 for 4, Rutschman 2 for 3, Santander 1 for 4, Mountcastle 2 for 4, O'Hearn 1 for 3. And Mountcastle had a home run. That team is a lot of fun to watch. And if you want to watch some good baseball, don't miss an Orioles game. And
Gunnar Henderson was hot.
Yeah.
red hot.
Yeah.
9 for 18 to start.
And they still don't have their number one prospect there yet.
No.
Think about what they're adding.
Mm-hmm.
And they have, I think we talked about this, 6 in the top 100, maybe 5. Like we said, there's a move to be made to get better. They're not done. And they have a new owner. Ooh, they're not close to done. So that was my big one. You want to do your first one? Or you want me to keep going?
My first one was the Pittsburgh Pirates. And I listened to some of their game today. And I wrote about some of the things they did this offseason where, yes, they've got some talent coming. We mentioned Skeens. They've got some other young guys, especially pitching and in the field. But they signed Michael Taylor. They re-signed McCutchen. They signed Marco Gonzalez. Or they actually traded for him from the Braves after he was traded from the Mariners to the Braves. The Braves then traded him to the Pirates. And they signed Perez. They've got all these veterans on a 1-year deal, show me kind of deals, but also come trade deadline, if they're not able to hang, they can still ship them off and just continue to build to that farm system. But for me, the big thing is Ke'Bryan Hayes, Brian Reynolds, O'Neill Cruz, Henry Davis, and even Jared Trillo, who's starting at second for them. He's getting on base. Everyone's getting on base for them. And they've got Ke'Bryan Hayes, Connor Joe, Brian Reynolds, Michael Taylor, O'Neill Cruz, and nope, he's not. So those 5 guys are all currently hitting over 300. And Brian Reynolds has 8 RBIs on the year already. That team to me is a fun one to watch. I enjoy writing about them simply because of the youth, and I think baseball's better when Pittsburgh is a better team.
Agreed.
I just think it's sad for a city such as Pittsburgh when it's got the Steelers, who are normally 8-8 or better, and then you've got Sidney Crosby and the Penguins, who have been good for years. It's time for Pittsburgh to shine through. And if these guys can stay healthy, I really, really, really like this team. I think Ke'Bryan Hayes is maturing, not just, mentally, but physically into his body. So his health concerns, I think this is going to be 1 year where he may play 150 games, and the 10 he misses are just spelled. And if he can do that, this team, I said it when we were doing the National League, I had them better than most, and I think they could be, if they get the pitching, I think they could be a surprise team, and they could push to make a wild card in that division. And them starting out 5-0 and beating the Marlins, who was a team that, I think we both had somewhere in the middle of the AL East.
Yeah, towards the bottom.
But they came out and I thought maybe split, beat them. And then today they look good again. It's the Nationals. So they have a pretty easy start to the year, but then they go to the Phillies. That'll be the true test this weekend. They play the Phillies. And to me, that was the biggest surprise. I did not see that coming from Pittsburgh, the pitching especially. Marco Gonzalez was terrific today. Again, against the Nationals, but he was terrific. So they're a team for me that I'm excited to watch this weekend against the Phillies, just to see how they measure up. And also, Philadelphia can't start too slow. I mean, they got trounced by the Braves. If they come in and lose that series to the Pirates, that's not good for them either. So that was a big thing for me this weekend.
So I'm going to piggyback off of that, and it leads into mine anyways, but I want to add something to what you said. You talked about the pitching. And so I'm going to assume that this is after their game today, while games are still being played right now. But as of right now, looking it up, their pitching is 12th in the league in ERA, 5th in the league in strikeouts, and 7th in the league in WHIP. The pitching through 5 starters, assuming that includes Gonzalez today.
Yep.
If they can keep that up, that, again, the NL Central is wide open. They can compete. I had them finishing, I think, either 4th or 5th with the Brewers. And they could easily, if they keep doing this, sliding right up to the top. which leads me into who I was going to talk about next, anyways, was Jared Jones, who's in my top 100, made his big league debut. Was it his big league debut, or has he pitched there before?
I think he's pitched there before, but I
He
can
might have
check.
pitched there last year. But right now, so he made his first start of the season. We'll go with that for right now. And 5 2/3, 3 hits, 3 earned runs. But the mind-boggling stat was the 10 strikeouts and 2 walks. Now the Marlins lineup, one of the most feared lineups in baseball? No. But Luis Ariz, 1 for 4. So you kept him pretty much at bay. And I don't know, was that hit without him in the game? Because his first at bat was a line out. His second at bat was ground out. And he flew out. So yeah, he didn't do anything against Jared Jones.
That was his first career start.
Okay, so first
which
career
is even
start.
that much more impressive.
He just the 3 hits to me, 3 earned runs. I get it. Probably that's gonna happen. I mean, it's his first career start. Nerves. The Marlins. Like I said, I like the Marlins. I think they have their issues, but he looked really good. And that's somebody I want to watch now a lot more this season. He's made his name to the list of pitchers that I want to tune in and watch when he makes a start. His next one, I do believe, is he's number 3. So I think he starts. They don't play Thursday, so it's got to be Friday. Oh, they do play Thursday. No, it's got to be Friday. I think Friday right now
is up against the Phillies.
It looks like he's got the Orioles on April 5th. Why
Okay.
is that the case? Is it not the Phillies this weekend? Yeah, no, it's the Orioles this weekend. So he's got the Orioles on Friday.
The Nationals must play. The Phillies.
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
That's my fault.
So he's got the Orioles. So again, a team we just talked about and how they've had a hot start. And so here you go, your second career start. You get one of the best teams in baseball that everybody's expecting to be either in the World Series or to be advancing deep in October. So Friday night, 4:12. I'm assuming he's on the mound because he pitched after Perez to start the season. So my guess is then if Perez is starting Thursday, then he's got Friday.
Yeah. No, definitely a strong opening start for Jared Jones. My second kind of comes as a surprise. We talked about this in the ITD fantasy baseball draft, and we were kind of laughing who was going to take Mike Trout. He's got 3 home runs on the year, but he also hit the very first home run of the season when he was playing the Orioles. He's got 3 right now. I don't see a way that Mike Trout finishes this year as an Angel. I don't know what it's going to take, but I don't see if he wants to win and get back into the playoffs that he sees that realistically happening with the Angels. And seeing how he's coming out, I think he's got a chip on his shoulder. With Ohtani gone and everyone thinking, world's coming to an end, that he wants to go out there and prove that it wasn't just Ohtani that was there. He was the one getting all the hype, but Trout's been doing this for how many years now?
Since he came into the league.
So I think he's got a big chip on his shoulder, and there's just something in me that says that someone's going to make a swing for Mike Trout. I don't know if it'll ever happen. I don't know if he ever wants to leave, but if he ever wants to return to October baseball, he's going to have to leave the Angels. So that to me was a shock because to see him come out and already have 3 home runs with that team, still not going to be a very good team, but I think he's going to have an impressive year just to kind of show people that, look, don't forget me. Just because Shohei's gone, don't forget me. I was doing this long before he was here.
He's having a hell of a night tonight as well.
Yeah.
2 for 3, 2 runs scored, 2 RBIs, and 2 home runs.
2 home runs?
Yep.
Yep.
He hit one in the – sorry, I closed out of it. He hit one in the 4th and one in the 6th. So back-to-back at-bats, he's got a home run.
he's only got 4 hits on the year, so 3 of them being home runs. So he's definitely out there. He's definitely got the ability. Now it just determines on his health. Can he hold up? He's a great fielder, but he's going to have to be one of those that gets moved to DH and or corner outfield, one of these things. And it's good for baseball. It's good for him because I do think that he was overshadowed, and not just by the stats, but by the publicity of Ohtani being there. I think that really bothered him, and I think he's going to come out, and I think he'll have a great first half, and it'll be interesting to see where it shakes out for him.
Well, that's the thing is he was. I mean, before Ohtani, everybody talked about him as he was the face of baseball. Him and Harper were the two faces of baseball, and then Ohtani comes in, and because he pitches and because he hits the way he does, Ohtani got the baton passed to him, which it was because Trout got hurt, and Trout's been hurt. Harper had his injuries, but Trout's still a name that everybody likes to see. I mean, you go to Fenway. I mean, you and I both go to Fenway, and you go there, and the Angels are there. The amount of Mike Trout jerseys you see, they're still out there. So I don't know how much I agree with you on the idea of he's an angel because of his comments this past offseason that he wants to stay there. But I could see it, I guess, in the offseason. If they don't do anything this year, I could definitely see him not being an angel his whole career.
Yeah, I think it would be. I don't know where the hell he would go, mind you, or what it would even take to pry him away, or a landing spot for that matter. I can't find a home.
Why, for some reason, as I'm sitting here watching the scores, the Rays just feel like, what if Mike Trout went there?
Jesus Christ, they can't even feel the.
Is that what it takes for the attendance? Like they're building a new stadium.
Jeez. They are building a new stadium, but that is one of the toughest places to get to. Like for a stadium, there's a reason why no one goes to those freaking games. I mean, even when they were really, really good, they struggled to fill that stadium. I mean, shit, I don't even think you can bring. I mean, not that the Rays. I think the Rays. Oh, Jesus, the Rays and the new. When's that new stadium being built?
I have no idea. That's a good question.
Christ,
while we're talking about it, the one place I've always seen Mike Trout going, and it still makes sense now, even more so, is being a Philly. Him playing with Harper, it makes so much sense. And Harper's not playing the outfield anymore. He's going to be a first baseman, I think, for the rest of his career.
Yeah.
It just has always made sense, and the two of them together being what they were hyped coming in, that just will always make sense to me.
What about the Texas Rangers?
What do you give up? The Angels are going to want pitching. I mean, granted, Carter? They did spend their draft 2 years ago drafting nothing but pitching, the whole draft.
You give up Carter. Give up Carter to start because Langford's off the table, in my opinion. Evan Carter. We talked about Leiter, but he's still – or Rocker. I mean, if they need young pitching. They need young – I mean, they have Ben Joyce, but I think Ben Joyce is a closer of the future. I don't think he's – I don't necessarily think he's got the stuff or the control to be a starter long term. That's a team that, to me, I could see him playing there.
Yeah.
Whether it be a DH, move Langford over to center or Garcia, one of the two. Carter's been playing corner outfield too. I just, not that it's going to happen. This is all speculation, but to me, Trout showing out in the first half of the year is good for baseball. And I think it'll be interesting to see what he does. But I do think that come trade deadline, it'll be interesting to see some of these names floated around. But the Angels aren't going anywhere. They have a lot of holes, and they need to get him a lot of help.
Mm-hmm.
What was your third?
So before we jump, 2028 on the Rays Stadium is when it's expected to open.
So 4 years from now, and that's too far out.
So I guess going now, I got 2 left. and this one, I guess both of these are actually biased. So
Okay.
I'll make it as quick as possible. But Red Sox, are they as bad as everybody thought they might be? I mean, the lineup hit. Other than Friday night, the lineup looked good
Hmm.
this weekend. And realistically, I think I don't know, they should be 3-1. I mean, if they don't make the decision to bring in Joely, who I've said time and time again, Bernardino should have been on this roster. Joely does not look right on this team anymore. I think Bernardino should be the lefty, and then they throw in Slayton to here's your Major League Baseball debut and enjoy. What I forget what the situation was, but you got Julio Rodriguez up and the game on the line, and he gives up a single, which I'm not going to fault the kid. He got put in that situation. But then that goes to I had the conversation. They had a great bullpen, and they have a bullpen that I think is in the top 10. Well, your closer comes out after that game and says, "Well, I have a bad back, and if I threw tonight, I'm out 2 weeks." What are you here for? Like he's the one that called out ownership all off season about not making moves, and then he can't go out there and pitch in a game that you could win and be 3-1. You're a team starting the season with a winning record and are a force to be reckoned with. But the main story here is that's my anger just coming out. So I'm sorry, as a Red Sox fan, that was my frustration from the weekend. Um, but the main thing I already talked about this offseason was we need Yamamoto. We need Jordan Montgomery. Okay, we didn't get those two. Montgomery went on as long as it did. We need Eminaga. We need this guy. We need this guy. What did we see this weekend? Andrew Bailey looks like he has something figured out. The starting pitchers we saw, Bayo had opening day, Pivetta had game 2, um, Crawford game 3, and Whitlock game 4. Now this is before Houck pitches tonight, which we're hoping to end this before that so I can go lay in bed and watch it. But the 4 starters this weekend, 22 innings pitched combined. They had a 164 ERA and a 0.68 whip. Now you're talking about a guy, Brian Bayo, making his first major league opening day start. Pivetta, if the Red Sox offense could have gotten him a run on Friday night, this team could have been 4-0. Crawford looked fantastic. And I said all year he might be one of the best number 5 in a rotation starters in the whole league. I mean, what he pitches with, if they had added 2 more arms, he would have been the number 5 guy. It might have been one of the best ones in the league. If I use your number 3, I don't know how I feel about that still, but he looked fantastic. And he settled in after a couple of rough, shaky innings. He could have gone one more. And, if he does, are you throwing Joely in extras? Now we're talking you're pushing Weissert, who looked great, to the 10th, and you might win that game. The final one was Whitlock, who had his hurdles yesterday, but once he settled in, he looked good. Now I'm curious to see what Houck does tonight and if this continues, but what Andrew Bailey has done to a starting rotation that people and Red Sox fans did not like or talk about, everybody said the lineup can produce. This lineup could win games. And yeah, you're going to have your games where they don't score a run. That's going to happen. It's baseball. You have 162 games. But people talked about this pitching rotation like it was a problem. And you had to go get a big arm. And you had to do this. And you had to do that. What they've shown me through 4 games is that if you have a pitching coach that cares and actually does something, you can be a different team. Now, will this hold up for the whole season? We'll see. Can Whitlock stay healthy for the whole season? We'll see. But what they did this weekend against a good Mariners team that I had picked to win the American League West, you come out of there 2-2, which is what I had because I have them coming home at 6-4 at worst. That pitching rotation looked very good, and I'm excited to see what happens over the next, I guess, this whole month and see where they're at after 3, 4, 5 starts for most of them.
I don't want to jinx anything, but there's something going on at Minute Maid Park right now with the Astros and Blue Jays game. And right now, Ronel Blanco, through 5 1/3, has 6 strikeouts and no hits against the Blue Jays.
You're making me switch off the Tigers game. This is something.
I have it on game day because I don't want to hear it in the background, be too distracted. But I was interested to see what the Astros were doing after the series with the Yankees. And Ronel Blanco is not someone many people other than perhaps Astros fans would know. And that lineup for the Toronto Blue Jays with Springer, Guerrero, Turner, who had his first home run as a Blue Jay, Varshal, Kirk, starting Clement at short, Kiermaier and IKF playing third. Right now, there's 2 outs because he just struck out Biggio. That's something to be interested to see. He's got 69 pitches, 49 of them are for strikes. Is it too early in the season to let this play out?
That's the question. And I wanted to know your thoughts on this because I was just wondering it too as I looked up. With a situation going on,
it's all in the wording.
It's your first start of the year. How long do you let them go? Like if it was the Red Sox,
I don't know anything about this guy. I don't know what his background is.
Yeah, I don't know much about him either. I saw him slated to start when I did my Blue Jay series preview today.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I thought it was somebody else getting the 5 spot, but it's Blanco. And talk about making a statement. He's out of the 6th.
That's he ground out, Springer ground out. So that's interesting to watch. But I agree with you, just bouncing back now that they're in between innings here. Pitching for the Red Sox, everyone was fucking up in arms. Got to sign somebody. But you see all those deals that people were signing. And quite frankly, none of them, to me, was a good signing. I think Sonny Gray's deal is a good deal. But you talk about anyone that was signed with Boris is all bullshit. They're all asking for big money. They didn't wait, so they did nothing. It's going to be very interesting. I don't even want to talk about Rodriguez coming into that game because I do agree Bernardino belonged on that team anyway from what he did last year. But my last thing was and the reason why I pulled up the Astros was what the Astros have done so far this year. And going in and getting, beat up by the Yankees and being 0-4 to start the year, that's a tough look. And now seeing this because we talked, previously that I'm not a huge fan of the Astros lineup. I like Tucker, I like Alvarez. Other than that, they got some guys, Bregman and Altuve, that are hurt. Pena fell off last year. He's better at the bottom of the lineup. That's a team that can really struggle. But to see this tonight, this is something I'm going to obviously be paying attention to because they're pitching without Verlander there, who's going to be making his way up. But it's interesting to see because these teams can't fall too deep. You know what I mean? In a division like the West, with the Mariners, with the Rangers, you can't dig yourself too deep of a hole before it becomes too tough. The only thing that saves them, and this is the one thing I don't know if I like it or not yet, is the 13 games against division rivals.
Oh, I like it.
Compared to what it used to be. I mean, I like it in terms of being able to see other teams, and I like what they're trying to do. But if you're going to do that, you also have to make these games a little bit more easy to view for the fans, so they're not having to pay out of their nose to see these games. So it was just something to me.
You're the Apple TV.
Yeah, now oh god, yeah, you've got to have 4 different devices, 4 different ways to view it. It's just tough. But like tonight, when I was looking at that and seeing them starting the season 0-4 and thinking about that division and the hole they were digging, then I thought, well, shit, they're going to end up playing against a lot of these bottom feeders too. So there's ground that they'll make up. But then again, so do their opponents, Mariners play the same teams. So do the Rangers. So it'll be very interesting to see how the rest of this game shakes out. But the Astros, to me, was kind of a surprise. I did not see that happening when they were facing the Yankees, especially with the questions with the Yankees pitching. So that, to me, was the big shakeout. And I also kind of was eating some of my words watching the Cubs Rangers series and seeing the Cubs just struggle. Of course, it didn't help when Steele went downfield in that bunt, but he was throwing today, so I don't think April is the time frame for him. But the Rangers, to me, as much as I think they can very easily be the Cardinals of this year and fall flat, I think we might be underestimating that lineup and how good they are.
Yeah, they're gonna steal games. That's for sure.
Yeah, so that was really for me the first. The Bucks were the big one. The Pirates, I don't want them to beat the Cubs ever, but I do enjoy watching them play. I've watched probably more of their games than I have the Cubs this year, just because of the times they're playing, and I've watched them. But
We just talked about the Reds, and you had their manager as the manager of the year.
yeah, they just took the lead.
4-run 10th inning, take a 6-2 lead. So I guess with all that said, I'm going to get to my last one, then we're all done with this.
Yep.
I'm talking about the Tigers and the weekend they had. I mean, there's 4 undefeated teams left: the Pirates, the Yankees, the Brewers, and the Tigers. The Tigers, now they played the lowly White Sox, who I watched today's game. It was cold there. I mean, the Cubs played at home too, so I mean, Chicago was just cold today. And it's coming to New England, and so we're going to get it soon too. We're getting a nor'easter. But the Tigers played the White Sox this weekend, and last year they had 35 wins against the American League Central. So they beat up on the division. And the question I said that they have to, if they're going to win the division again this year, is they have to continue to do that and figure it out against the American League East. If they go 500 against the American League East, they'll be fine. Right now they're in a 0-0 game in the bottom of the ninth against the Mets, which is interesting. But that tells me this bullpen looks good, this rotation looks good, and Casey Mize is getting the ball tomorrow. But 1-0 to win on opening day. Skubal, like I said, my Cy Young pick, looked fantastic. And on Saturday, I was driving home, so they were off Friday. I was driving home from my parents' house. My son slept at my parents' house on Friday and Saturday. And when I was driving home, I was listening to Tigers the first couple innings. Maeda struggled, and he's got to keep that home run ball down. But the one thing was the fighting back from this team. I mean, they were down 6-3 going into the 5th inning, and they scored 3 runs combined in the 5th and 7th inning. So they didn't score in the 6th. And then they forced it to extras, and they take a 7-6 win in extra innings, which Shelby Miller, who I had as my prediction to be their closer, went 2 innings, didn't give up a run, a hit, or a walk, and he struck out 1. Love to see that. That's the Chris Fetter effect, which is what I think is also happening with the Red Sox and Andrew Bailey. So pitching coaches, love it. Yesterday, I was watching the game with my nephews, and I was telling them, like, watch this guy, whatever. They went down 1-0. And, then the game was 2-1, and they got tied 2-2. And there was never a doubt that this team was going to come back and take the lead again. And that's just what this lineup does. The pitching, there's no worries. Mize is going to have his hiccups. He's coming back from Tommy John and his back and all the issues he had. There's going to be hiccups. Olson's going to have his. But the lineup with Maeda, especially his start, and they climbed right back into it. Flaherty is one name. I didn't even mention him in his start. Yeah. A guy that the Orioles traded for at the deadline, got to make a playoff run, and he struggled, and they moved him to the bullpen. Was looking for a way to figure it out. And a name that popped into my head, now granted, I'm not going to overreact. It was one start. He looked great. But think of what Chris Fetter, as the pitching coach for the Tigers, did to Michael Lorenzen last year.
Yeah.
And the numbers he put up, and then leading to him getting traded, which got the Tigers Hyu Lee, and then now he got a contract, what he did. Again, the pitching market was what it was in the offseason, so him being around as long as he was is what the issue was with the pitching market. But, Flaherty, in his first start as a Tiger, looked like a different pitcher, like he did, in the COVID year for the Cardinals. 6 innings, 4 hits, 1 earned run, 7 strikeouts, and didn't issue a walk. And to add that to your rotation, which has Skubal as a Cy Young candidate, Maeda is Maeda. He's probably a 500 pitcher. And then I said it last week with my Tigers prediction. I don't want to go too much into it, but the 4 and 5 of Olsen and Mize, and then you have all of the depth in the minor leagues of pitching that they're just gonna have Fetter getting better and better. They're a team that is going to be a problem. And I heard tonight when I was watching MLB tonight before I switched over to the Tigers game that the Royals to people are this year's Orioles. Let's not count out the Tigers and what the Tigers are, because all of this pitching can turn into bats. It can turn into something like the Orioles did to. They have the bats. They went and acquired Corbin Burns, and then granted, we talked about they didn't give up much, but
No.
this Tigers team is built to go trade some pieces or get guys ready. That they're going to be a bigger problem than people think. So there are, after 3 games, I don't want to overhype and say I was right and do all these jumping jacks and all this stuff. It's a 162 game season. But if you're a baseball fan, tune into a Tigers game. And this game's going extra innings. So, this isn't going to go live tonight, but
Yeah.
tomorrow, tune in and see Casey Mize back on the mound. And they are a team to watch.
Blancos through 6. No hits.
Guess I'm switching
Not yet,
back.
at least. Yeah. So the last 2 things I had, 2 bits of news, and the last thing I had was really mine was the Reds, and more about something I wrote about in regards to preseason or spring training. Jonathan India was first rumored to be traded. He was one that was mentioned to be going to the Red Sox to play second. Then it came out they were going to keep him, and they were going to start giving him some reps out in the outfield. Then Marte gets suspended for 80 games. So now all of a sudden the logjam they have, they move Jameer Candelario over to third. Christian Encarnacion Strand now can play first. India gets at bats at DH. Simple enough. Then TJ Friedel goes down. Who's going to replace him? So they moved Fairchild, they moved Benson around a little bit, and they moved Jake Fraley. Then Matt McLain goes down. We really don't know about Matt McLain yet because they're still quiet on that. So now Jonathan India is back starting at second base. All that logjam that you had freed up and almost at the point where you need a bat. Nick Martini and the weekend he had. It just goes to show that giving some guys some opportunity, because everyone was pissed off the fact that they didn't sign Mike Ford, who is now back with the team and everything. So the Reds are another team that's fun to watch, and why I picked Bells, because all the early season adversity is going to be fun to watch. And I think that pitching staff's going to be a lot better than everyone thinks. And Nick Lodolo pitched this weekend for the Louisville Bats and looked strong. Didn't win the game, but looked strong. So he'll be back as well. The other piece of news here before we get into our final, closing is Mike Clevenger signed with the White Sox. He's back with the White Sox, so they're going to finish dead last still. But he's back with the White Sox. The next name to fall is Trevor Bauer. Where is he going to end up? And that's something I want to focus on next week.
If he does.
If he does. And he may not.
It's funny that Clevenger signed today with the White Sox because I was sitting at work watching the Braves and White Sox game, and it dawned on me as I'm watching them, what do they have for pitching? Like, I know I said they were going to finish in last in the American League Central, but then it really hit me watching this game that they have nothing. And then, of course, Clevenger signs today, so that gives them a starter. So Who is bumped out? Is it Crochet? Because he was a reliever, and this was really his coming out.
He looked good, though.
He did look good. I'm not going to discourage that. But, I mean, they're going to bump somebody. Are they worried about Soroka? I like watching Michael Soroka. And I feel bad for him. Cause
I root for him.
Yeah. He was fun to watch as a Brave, and then he had his issues, and here we are now. He's a White Sox. He's trying to figure it out, and they need pitching, and that's another name. I mean, if you want to talk about Bauer, I don't think he's getting it signed, and that's more about things I've seen lately. I don't know the full story, but they need something. I don't like the idea of moving Kopech to the bullpen. I really don't, because you need
Yeah.
something. I mean, the division's
That
wide
team's
open.
a hot mess. That team's a hot mess. Even
Yeah.
with the division wide open, that team is a hot mess. But it was a very interesting weekend of baseball. I think there'll be more stories to talk about next week. Before we get into the closing, I just want to remind anyone that's listening and anyone that follows us and subscribes that if they're interested in getting any merch, you can go to the store insidethediamonds.com and pick out, whether it be a t-shirt, hooded sweatshirt. There'll be more to come. But if you're looking to support the brand and wear the gear, by all means, go to the store on the site, pick something out, and be paying attention because there will be more to come. We're discussing hats. We're discussing a bunch of other, fun things to include. So while you're watching your games, you're out at a barbecue, that you have stuff to support the brand, and just go to the store on the website and pick out something. And I've got stuff coming myself. So hopefully next time on the one of the upcoming podcasts, I'll have my own gear to be showing you. But just go and support us. Go onto the store, pick something out. And if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to this podcast and follow all of our social channels as well, so you can catch all the news that we're putting out for everyone, all the content. So, CJ, I know that we've talked. I wanted to give you this opportunity before we close out the show to kind of open the floor for you and give your story.
So, I want to take this moment just with today, and I'm going to try this without getting emotional. I should be all right, but we'll see. Today is April 1st, April Fool's Day, which to people is a joke day. But to me, today would have been my grandfather's 89th birthday. And he is the reason I'm a Red Sox fan. He is the reason I love baseball the way that I do. We used to watch every game that was on TV. I mean, granted, back then you didn't have MLB TV. You didn't have the options you had. So it was Braves, Red Sox, and then whatever was on Fox that Saturday, which always felt like it was Pedro versus Clemens or Pedro versus Messina. But that was what we watched. And I played baseball, like I said previously, that I just retired after 25 years of playing. And up until the day that he passed away, he would never miss a game. Always came to every single one of my games. And I won a championship the month before he passed away. So today, he would have been 89. And I just want to say a little something about him, and that this game means so much to me. And the reason why I love it, and the reason why I love talking about it, is because it feels he's still here and I'm still able to do this with him. So now having a platform to be able to talk about this, I want to take a second and just give a happy birthday to him. And I know my dad and my mom listen, and I think some family does as well. So I know they'll be happy to hear about this. And happy birthday, Pepe. And we all miss you. So with that, I'll let you go next, and we'll go from there.
That's awesome, CJ. I mean, everyone's got a reason for the game, and I think there's a lot more of those stories out there than not, in regards to maybe it's a father, maybe it's a grandfather, maybe it's a brother, uncle, whatever. There's someone close to them that introduced them to the game, and that's why the love for the game is there. And I think you said it a couple of different times. It's tough not to be romantic about baseball. Or something along those lines from the movie. And there's a lot of stuff in this game that makes it special, with loved ones. The last update I have, and happy birthday, by the way.
Let me hold on. Can I add one story?
Yeah, go ahead.
For those of you who are listening who don't know me or whatever, he passed away from a brain aneurysm on July 6th of 2008. But a little story, it just popped in my head. I don't know why I didn't say this when I was giving the little happy birthday. But back in that summer, I had written the Red Sox and saying that he was going through some blood transfusions, going through some things, and asked if he could throw out a first pitch, knowing how much the Red Sox meant to him and what they did for his life. I got a letter back with Fenway Dirt. And I actually got the letter back the day after he passed away. So for those of you who believe in like the karma and stuff like that and the fitting stories, I think that's something I want to add. But he actually was at Beth Israel in Boston, and I remember the day that he had the surgery, the Red Sox were playing the Yankees on Sunday Night Baseball. And so that was actually, you could see the lights of Fenway as everything was going on. So I just wanted to add that in, that, baseball is, like you said, romantic, and you have relationships with people and you have that bond with people, and somehow, without even knowing it, that you go through all that and it's right there with you. And baseball helps us get through a lot of things in our life. So that's all I wanted to add.
No, baseball, the reason why I'm into baseball is my father. My dad coached me all the way up. He only coached me. He didn't coach me 1 year. Didn't coach me 1 year Little League. That was my first year, and then he coached me all the way through that. Babe Ruth, even kind of subbed in at times for middle school. Didn't coach me in high school, but all summer long he worked and traveled for work, growing the business, and I'd go on trips with him, and we'd always buy baseball cards. That's what built our link. You know what I mean? We'd do the baseball cards, we'd pick teams, we'd have teams, and then we'd do the stats. And then we got into Stratomatic baseball, and we would do that with friends, and just baseball, sports in general with my father. With the travel that he did early on when I was younger, and the sacrifices he made, but how he made it up to not just me, but my sisters as well. It was just something. And that year the Red Sox won it all, I watched every single game while I was living at home in 2004 with my father and mother. And that's just something that, I try to do with my kids, but it just goes to show that there's that connection and you want to share that. And I know you're doing that with your son as well. So it's
Absolutely.
passing it on, and it's a tremendous game. And that's why, we both have busy lives, but that's why we're doing this right now, as foolish as it may seem to some. That's why we're doing this, is because the impact that these loved ones have had on us, and just for the love of the game. So it allows us to take time out of our busy schedules to kind of talk the sport that we love. And we're very fortunate for it, and the opportunity we have with those loved ones to learn this game.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So I think that'll do it for this week's episode. I think the big thing moving forward, like, subscribe, follow us. We're going to get more in depth. I think that there's talk that you and I, once our schedules kind of calm down, that we'd like to get to have this episode be the one bouncing off the weekend be an hour, and then do something for like a quick hits or a hit and run 30-minute episode, so that we're covering everything. So it's not just all jumbled into that Monday for a full week. So
Yep.
Keep liking, subscribing, paying attention, share it, whatever, tell your friends about it. We're going to try to grow this and continue to talk to the game, and let you know what we're thinking. And, again, talking about what's happening during the broadcast, as right now, we're still bottom 7, 6 outs left for Blanco. And right now it'll be interesting. So if you have MLB, or you have the ability to turn on that Astros Blue Jays game, I suggest you do so, because it's going to be a very interesting ending to that game.
Only 81 pitches. So,
yeah, let it roll, right? Thank you, everyone. I hope everyone has a great rest of your week. Enjoy some baseball, and join us next week. Like and subscribe, and follow us on all the channels. Have a great night, everyone.